everyone, it's Jessica and I want to welcome you back to another episode of Workshopped It. This one is going to be a little bit different than our normal book series. We're actually going to focus on Willy's Wonderland, which is a movie that recently came out. You wouldn't be able to tell from a lot of the stuff that I've posted up on the channel so far, but I love horror. I'm especially a big fan of like the supernatural horror, so haunted houses, exorcisms, possessed dolls, or in this case possessed animatronics are all right up my alley, some of my favorite kinds of horror stories to talk about and grapple with. Now this year in particular I've had like a lot of anxious energy, so horror hasn't been something I've been able to dabble in as much as I usually like to. However, Willy's Wonderland is actually more of like a B horror movie where we have our protagonist going into a closed down pizzeria that has a bunch of animatronic figures, much like Chuck E. Cheese, but in this case Willy the Weasel from Willy's Wonderland. And he's going into this closed area and he is going to spend the night cleaning it up for reopening. And when he gets in there and he starts doing all this cleaning work, that's when he finds out that the animatronics seem to be malfunctioning or possessed or a mind of their own. Whatever the case is, they are coming to life and they are attempting to kill him while he's cleaning up this pizzeria. So then it's sort of up to him to kind of fend for himself. It becomes a survival horror type story. A person-sized doll with a metallic skeleton coming after a guy and trying to kill him might sound like a huge and terrifying horror film, but the beauty of Willy's Wonderland is, and huge spoilers here, it won't spoil anything for you if you've already seen the trailers, but if you haven't seen the trailers and you just wanted to go into this movie blind, this is going to be a big spoiler, so skip ahead to whatever the time is up here to miss this spoiler. But the twist here is that when the animatronics come to life and attempt to kill Nicolas Cage, his character attacks them back and brutally destroys the animatronics. It's really funny. It's supposed to be a big scary moment. We've already seen in the intro a little teaser where a couple were trapped in the restaurant and were both murdered. So seeing this scene here where Nicolas Cage just turns around on the first animatronic that pops up and tries to kill him and beats it to death with a mop handle and rips out its like animatronic spine is really funny. It's very entertaining and it might be cathartic to a lot of people because this is a lot like Five Nights at Freddy's. I personally have been a longtime fan of this video game series. It's an independent series that made it big. You can find their merchandise now in places like Target and whatnot. But originally it was just a trial by this game developer, Scott Cawthon. He basically had the player play as a watchman in a closed pizzeria where the animatronics would come to life and attempt to kill the player. Willy's Wonderland takes advantage of the success of Five Nights at Freddy's and takes the frustration a lot of players had where they were killed by these animatronics and sort of flips it on its head and gives us one of our acting faves for these kind of roles. Nicolas Cage is our stand-in for us. And he gets to do what a lot of us wish we could have done during the course of playing this video game, which is somehow destroy the animatronics instead of trying to hide or block them. The overall effect is, even though the movie is in a horror genre and it's being sold to us as a B horror movie, we already know that these animatronics are scary and mean, and we know that instead of them killing us, this time we're gonna get them. And that's just like such a fun, exciting, cathartic experience, and I can just see it being executed. I can see the potential for it to be executed really well. So right away, there's just a lot of excitement and energy for this movie. And on top of that, I don't know if anyone else has gotten a chance to look at the director of this movie, but he is really energetic, he's really friendly and playful, and he openly admits that he knows that there will be comparisons to Five Nights at Freddy's and he welcomes it. There are only so many ideas in this genre. The possessed doll, possessed animatronic is a general idea, and he took that and he built on it. And if people who like Five Nights at Freddy's also like his movie Willy's Wonderland, or go to see his movie because of that enjoyment of that genre, then he's all for it. A little bit Willy's Wonderland is like a fun break in the animatronic pizzeria horror genre. I can't believe there's a whole genre for it now. It's sort of amazing. Because Scott Cawthon is coming out with a new game later this year, but it's going to be in a little later in spring, possibly in summer. We're not sure when that release is coming. He's got a break in his book series right now. I'm not sure when they're coming back, and they're starting production on his movie soon. He's finally found a script he's happy with. And we are going to get our own Five Nights at Freddy's movie eventually. Probably next year or the year after that is when we'll see a release on it. So Willy's Wonderland is like this little snack, a little fun, lighthearted, colorful snack for us to enjoy while we're waiting for like these heavy, grittier, darker themed animatronic pizzeria horror shows to finish. You know, for right now, for where I am mood-wise, this is exactly what I need. I need something that's got like a little gore, a little bit of that like spooky possession, but not so much that it's like overwhelmingly dark or a downer. Not so much that I'm worried for the characters. I want to see the characters, whoever our hero is in this, I want to see them win. And I want to see them win pretty easily without too much work. I just want it to be like a fun, creative ride. I don't want to be stressed about exactly what's going to happen or how it's going to happen. So I feel like Willy's Wonderland is the movie we need. And in fact, Willy's Wonderland was the fun that I was looking for in Wonder Woman 1984 that movie didn't deliver. So if you're looking for like a little bit of a fun ride and a little bit of a beat 'em up from Wonder Woman 1984 and you didn't get it, I actually think Willy's Wonderland might be the movie for you right now as well. If it's not obvious by now, I loved this movie. I thought it was mostly perfect. The tone it was setting, the selection of Nicolas Cage for this role, the colors, they had a couple in specific great storytelling takes and scenes that I enjoyed. The animatronics themselves, they felt non-human, which can be hard to do because a lot of times the way they do these animatronics is they just put a guy in a suit and you have to somehow make the movement come across in a way that feels non-human. So I think they did great with that, making the animatronics move in unpredictable ways that gave you the idea that there might be just robots in there instead of people. The animatronics also, they did a pretty good job making them stand out and giving each one a little bit of its own personality, its own gimmick. So that was fun. They had a couple fun one-liners. An element that was especially interesting to me is the main character we follow around is Nicolas Cage, who's just called the janitor, and he never talks in the whole movie. Sometimes he makes like a grunting sound or a scream, but there's no verbal communication. And because of that, the movie has to do a lot of heavy lifting camera-wise to show us things rather than having someone tell us them or express it verbally. An early example of this visual storytelling that we're talking about is when Nicolas Cage is driving in his car. We flash to his dog tags, which lets us know he's a veteran. He runs over the spikes in the road, he grabs one of his punch colas, and then we see just his shadow go from one side to noon over to the other side. And we know that he's been standing in front of his car waiting for someone to come help him all day. And it's just that simple pan, that passage of time, like sundial wise, really quick. It's like a couple second shot. And it tells us so much about the timeline, about the kind of guy Nicolas Cage is, that he literally just stood there and waited all day. He didn't try to walk away from his car. He didn't try to call anyone. He wasn't pacing. He wasn't, you know, there was a lot of other things his character could have been trying to do and what most people would be trying to do in that situation. And he just stood by his car and waited literally all day for someone to come and help him. Another great moment for the visual storytelling are pretty much all of the pinball scenes with Nicolas Cage. While he's in the pizzeria and working overnight, the guy, before he leaves, tells him to stay hydrated and to take many breaks. which Nicolas Cage he sets his watch for, and he goes ahead and he takes quite a few breaks. Every time his watch beeps, he goes into the kitchen no matter what he's doing, he drinks a can of his pop, and then he plays on a Willy's Wonderland pinball machine. And the pinball machine scenes are excellent because he seems so into it, he seems to be having a great time. He's bringing like that old arcade energy to the role, and it really helps connect viewers to their potential time in an arcade, time at Chuck E. Cheese, sort of like one of these childhood memories of this pizzeria or of an arcade that is like this in our minds. And we all have an arcade or a pizzeria, most of us, we have an arcade or a pizzeria type childhood memory. And these places, they were kind of dark, they always had like that music, they felt like a roller rink too has the same energy to me. A certain kind of time and place feel energy, and it makes you feel like you're there in the movie a little bit more. And whether or not you were Nicolas Cage and really excited about playing the pinball machine, or you had a friend who was really good and who would get in the zone, we sort of all have this universal experience, and just seeing it embodied on screen was a lot of fun. The other thing I love about Willy's Wonderland is I love the bright colors. Everything is really bright, there's a lot of confetti, and at the same time it's dirty and it's grimy. And I think the contrast between like a place that's supposed to be bright and clean and happy, and you can see that it's been worn down and that it's got tired, that people haven't cared for it the way they should have, perhaps it's been abandoned. That element, I think, gives a lot to a story, and I think that makes a lot of places creepy. It also sort of embodies the abandoned places feel and the fascination that people have with going and photographing or exploring abandoned places. Whether they're amusement parks or malls or movie theaters or gas stations, you know, there's a thriving community of people, urban explorers, that go and look at these places. And Willy's Wonderland has really sort of captured that feel. And what a daunting task it has to be for someone to come in and try and clean a place like that overnight. Not that you would know from Nicolas Cage's character, but just like as a retail food service hospitality person, I looked through a lot of these scenes. I looked through like the fridge and a lot of the dish sink that we keep getting shots of, the floors, the mopping, all the materials they had to use. It brought like a lot of food service, retail, hospitality memories back to me, to different jobs I'd done in different places. Like it brought me all the way back to when I worked at KB Toys and had to mop the floors there, because the tiles of Willy's Wonderland, both how dirty they were and how useless mopping was, and their general color, brought me back to my time at KB Toys, because they had the same kind of bright kid color pattern that you'd have found in a KB Toys. In KB Toys, at least the one I was at, the floors had never been properly treated, which made me cleaning them impossible. No matter how many times you scrubbed and whatnot, there's just gunk caked on there that was never going to come off because they hadn't waxed and treated the floors properly. So it just didn't have that buffer. And I can imagine at a place like Willy's Wonderland, the same issue would occur. Probably that the treatment had worn off and that no one had come to correct it. It's just like a little insider information there. Same with the dish sink and how that was working. It brought back so many wash, rinse, sanitize, food service energy, which meant that some of the montages that happened later in the movie where Nicolas Cage was cleaning and he actually like was removing a layer of grime or polishing up mirrors or straightening out chairs, I was getting the same kind of satisfaction seeing him do that I might get from my job. So there's just a lot going on in this movie. Unrealistic movie, you know, animatronics being possessed and coming to life to murder people. But there are a lot of little elements in it that are very real, feel very lived in, feel like somebody who has done a job like that before, or who's, you know, lived in an arcade or worked in an arcade before, or spent time in an arcade, someone who's done food service before. All of those things they had experience and knowledge of and really brought to life in little moments in the film. All these like little elements like that just were above and beyond what I expected from a B horror movie to give me. And it was just like a very enjoyable moment. We're all in different phases of quarantine right now, watching a fun movie set in like a entertainment party atmosphere that's very brought to life. It gives off strong like nostalgia, good old time energy waves, even in a horror movie. And I just think that's like a fun, enjoyable moment to have. I also thought the music in Willy's Wonderland was really fun. It has like this retro 80s video game feel to it that I enjoyed. Parts of the soundtrack reminded me a little bit of the first Resident Evil soundtrack. And I think the music in Resident Evil, it has that like action, pumped, we're gonna go forward and just keep moving style. I think it works well both in Resident Evil and here in Willy's Wonderland. So visually and sound-wise, I think there's a lot of great storytelling and a lot of interesting things happening. Character-wise, I think this movie leaves a little bit to be desired, and I think if I were going to workshop any part of this movie, it would be the characters. And it's hard to say what I would fix, because technically, to me, everything is working in the film as is. Fix is kind of like a misnomer in this situation. But I would say that the teens here are kind of a confusing mess. I eventually understand in the film why Liv wants to burn down the place, but I don't understand why the rest of the teens are so invested in Willy's Wonderland and destroying it. So Liv has personal investment, and then the guy who would like to date Liv, I guess I can give a pass to as well, just because teens be doing crazy things for romance. But then the other 3 teens that are present, I don't understand why they're interested in burning down Willy's Wonderland. I don't understand why they're so committed to it. And especially the one who keeps complaining about being there, about them all going to get themselves killed and endangering themselves. It's like, if you're really that worried about it, then why are you here? I guess most friend groups had someone like this in them. Maybe I was that person in my friend group, which is why I don't recall them. If we could have just given them some motivation, maybe if we had provided a flashback to like a birthday party they'd been to in Willy's Wonderland that had gone badly, or, you know, them sneaking into Willy's Wonderland and something bad happening, or maybe even like something bad happening to their school that was attributed to the animatronics at Willy's Wonderland. If we could have just had a flash like that somewhere in the movie to help explain, even though they're scared, why they're there and moving forward with a plan, that would have helped. I found the sheriff character to be really annoying. I really hated her. I'm not sure what they could have done to correct that. Like, she was just so certain that she was doing the right thing all the time and that she was like 8 steps ahead of everyone else. That didn't make sense to me. It was pretty obvious that she was doing what was expedient for her and not necessarily what was right or just, which I guess seeing a crooked cop frustrates everyone. But on top of that, she just thought like, quite a deal, and I'm clever, and I know what's going on, and I'm in charge. She had like this false sense of security. I didn't understand where that came from either. We probably could have used a backstory on the sheriff that would have explained her position better. Maybe if we could have tied her in more to like the serial killer who originally owned Willy's Wonderland, like her being a beat cop at that time and coming in on the scene. Or if we could have tied her in more to some of the tragedies that happened to Willy's Wonderland when it next reopened, or when they closed it down and tried to let it rot. Like, if we could have given her some personal investment, like maybe her family had been killed, or maybe if she had been the child of one of those psychopaths from the original Willy's Wonderland, maybe, you know, like if she was the daughter of like the original owner of Willy's Wonderland and that's why she thought she could bargain with them. Something like that would have been a fun tie-in. It would have given us a little bit more lore, a little more meat in the bones of this story. If we could have seen it instead of having them just give us exposition, that would have been helpful too, because there were a couple of moments, and it's amazing that these moments even exist in a movie where the main character doesn't speak. But there were a couple of moments where it was just like an exposition dump in the middle of the movie. And I always joke that what I like most about movies is that you can't do an exposition dump the way you can in a book. You have to show it to me. It's a visual medium. But apparently you can still do that. You can still just have a conversation between two characters who they tell you a history and we're just close up on their faces going back and forth in a conversation. And I understand some of that has to do with the fact that this is a low budget movie. And to be fair, the scenes are done very quickly and the information is interesting and relevant. But I do remember there being 2 or 3 times where I was staring at the film being like, are you really putting an exposition dump into a movie right now? I don't know if that's amazing or the most annoying thing that's ever happened, but it is interesting. My final pitch for Willy's Wonderland is gonna leave the majority of the film entirely intact. I love that Nicolas Cage's character doesn't talk. He's still not gonna talk. And I love that we don't have a backstory on him. He's just like a mysterious stranger veteran who drove into town, kills all the animatronics, and drives out. I think that's all working in this movie. What I would do is I would add in a couple flashback scenes for the teens that explain why they're invested. I think what I would do, since the Willy's Wonderland's been closed for a while, is we're gonna have Liv's backstory that sort of explains what's going on with her, and then we're also gonna have an incident that happened at school. The sheriff mentions that the animatronics were even hurting kids at school. So we'll have one of those incidents at school where the animatronics, I don't know, maybe they got into the locker room post-pep rally and assaulted a bunch of the jocks and the cheerleaders. And, you know, these people, that would cover both the boys and the girls in theory, because the 2 dudes look like they'd be some kind of jock, and I could see the girl being a cheerleader, or I could just see that girl, she's a little bit spacey and a little bit like that 70s show girl. She could just be really good friends with Liv the same way that one dude wants to date her. And that could be like those 3's commitment, and then the 2 boys who I'm most confused about, if they were involved in a pep show rally incident where the animatronics attacked and killed some of their friends, that would explain why they want to burn the place down and why they're committed. And it would also explain why the one teen is too afraid to go into Willys. I mean, he does eventually fall in by accident. For a long time, he just wants to burn the place down. He's willing to burn that stranger alive if it means he can kill the animatronics. And then when their friend goes in there and gets trapped, he just wants to bail. He wants to leave entirely and just forget the whole plan. So we could take that fear and find a reason for it, and that would bring him from, he'd still be a jerk, but it would transform him from being just a huge jerk and really unlikable to having something that we could relate to, having that trauma that both motivates him to destroy the place and also makes him too scared to enter. So that would be cool. And then with the sheriff, I think what I like most for an idea for the sheriff is I'm going to have her be the daughter of the original owner of Willy's Wonderland. That's going to explain her whole police officer arc as well. You know, as the daughter of someone who is a serial killer, she's looking to sort of make things right. She's looking to get justice. She's looking to try and explain things in the world. It's how she becomes the local town sheriff. And when she sees that he is still alive in some sort of way, in this case trapped within the animatronics, I think she's going to have like a split issue. On one side, she's going to be driven to protect the town, to prove she's not like him, to prove that she chose law and justice in society, right? And in doing that, she's going to want to stop the animatronics from pillaging her town. But I think on the other side, we still are talking about a guy who was her father, and that could be a complicated relationship for her. She has mixed feelings. Possibly her father was nice to her and a kind, loving father, even while he was a crazy murderous serial killer. We do see models for that. And even if her father was not kind to her, sometimes we still seek approval or we hesitate to cut people out of our life, even when that would be the best thing for us to do. And maybe that's part of the struggle that leads her to cutting a deal with the animatronics. Like, she just doesn't really want to kill her father or destroy everything that is left of her dad. In this case, it would be the haunted animatronics, which I feel really silly saying. It sounds ridiculous saying it out loud, but emotionally, if you could find an actor that could step into that range, I feel like it could be a moving performance where you can see she's torn between doing what's right and taking care of her town and still holding on to that chance for like approval or like some kind of redemption arc between her and her father, or in this case her and Willy the Weasel. And it would explain too her confidence, like Willy the Weasel won't kill me because I'm his daughter, and he wouldn't kill family even if he is a serial killer. So that's my workshop it on Willy's Wonderland. Overall, I thought it was a really fun movie. I had a great time watching it, and I had a great time talking about it here with you guys. If you enjoyed the movie, if you enjoyed this video, please give me a like. And if you're looking for more videos like this, more Workshopped It, I have a whole playlist of Workshopped It. They're usually a lot more detailed than this. I usually change a lot more or critique a lot more. I don't know if I'm just still so excited about Willy's Wonderland because I watched it last night, or if this movie just, for me, was perfect in most ways, but I didn't have as many critiques as I usually have. Anyways, feel free to check out my playlist of all my other Workshopped It, and if you like content like this that's surrounded by urban fantasy, paranormal romance, sci-fi, and you know, the horrors that are like that too, the magic-based horrors, I should say, in this case possessed animatronics, feel free to subscribe to my channel. I come out with new videos every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Central. So thanks for coming to the end, and I guess I'll talk to you guys next time. Bye!